Happy 10th birthday, Dead by Daylight. I've been playing Dead by Daylight since the fall of 2019. That's right when Stranger Things came out and was arguably, at the time, the most popular chapter of Dead by Daylight. But this game's been going on for 10 years, way back in June 14th, 2016. Back then, when there were only 3 killers and 4 survivors. And although I have never been a part of any of the major metas of Dead by Daylight from way back then, and either the incredibly buggy or incredibly overpowered state that the game was once a part of. I joined in 2019 and I have been around for most of the major parts of Dead by Daylight. I have quite the story when it comes to Dead by Daylight. I first heard about it through a Twitch streamer friend, and he was playing Dead by Daylight, and I was like, okay, this looks like a fun game, especially for a fun game for Halloween, because he was playing around Halloween, and back then, I was not necessarily the biggest fan of horror games, so the more I was watching my friend play it, the more I got comfortable with the fact that Dead by Daylight, it's not necessarily like the most graphic video game I have ever seen, so right around a month after I got my first PC, I bought Dead by Daylight, started playing as Survivor, and for the first year I was a Survivor main, I did not feel comfortable playing as the killer. So that changed right around, I would say, December or November of 2020. I started playing my first killer games and started trying to get more comfortable around killer. This was roughly around the time when the twins were introduced, and although I didn't play twins, I was playing Ghostface, Clown, and the Pig for my first few rounds of killer mains. So those were my first killer mains. So although that did change right around March of 2021 when All Kill was released and the Trickster came in. I don't know what it was about with me and Trickster, but I saw myself playing as the Trickster for a very long time, for roughly about 2 years though. For 2 years I was a Trickster main, and this was before the Prestige rework, and I didn't even bother like collecting the Prestige 1, 2, or 3 back in the day, where if you Prestige, you lost all of your rewards. But back then, Trickster was at a pretty good state. You needed 6 blades to injure survivors. He did move at 4.4, and I think the biggest thing for me back in the day, he was able to counter Dead Hard for Distance. And if I'm aging myself by saying Dead Hard for Distance, you can tell how long I've been playing the game. So, however, that did change in December of 2023, and although Trickster did get the rework that I'm calling the 2.0 rework, Chucky did come out in December of 2023. So Trickster got changed. I saw a shiny new toy being a good guy doll, and I was maining a Chucky. I was Chucky main. And then he got reworked, and then I was bouncing around killers thinking, oh my gosh, who am I going to main? They keep nerfing my favorite killers, and then I ultimately stuck with Deathslinger for the longest time. And I would say that Deathslinger would probably be my most favorite killer to play as and against. I don't know why, I mean, it's just killer with a gun. Ooh, that's shiny. So, I've definitely had a lot of experience with Dead by Daylight when it comes to both survivors and killers. I've recently prestiged Nicolas Cage in a recent live stream. So Nicolas Cage was my second P100 character. I have not P100 a killer yet. Hopefully this year I will be, with Jason coming up, but I'll just stick with that for a little bit later. But with Dead by Daylight turning 10 years old, it is amazing to think that a game that was only supposed to last for a few years have managed to survive 10 years. It just shows how confident that the developers are when it comes to acquiring these characters from these different IPs, whether it be from the source material or they are not, which is a good example for the Ghostface and the Jason chapter. So it is safe to say that Dead by Daylight could go on for a very long time, but it's worrying some of how Dead by Daylight is going at this cycle of reworks, patch fixes, bug fixes, or lack of bug fixes, I should say. Because as most people know that Dead by Daylight, when it comes to their bugs, it's incredibly laughed at. So, or the lack of fixes, I should say. I really want Dead by Daylight to last for as long as possible. And if they want to last as long as possible, they need to really like step up their patch fixes, their number tweaking, their bug fixes, as well as a bunch of other stuff that I'm not going to talk about right now, but it is definitely worth like saying up and speaking up about. Jason being involved in Dead by Daylight is definitely a good start of the next decade to come for Dead by Daylight, and especially the fact that we're getting the Grimoire chapter in fall with the Judgment and, if I remember the survivor names correctly, Aurora? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'll be right by the time the chapter comes out, don't worry about that. So, and also we're getting teasers of, could possibly getting teasers of the next licensed chapter, which a lot of people are saying it could be Terrifier. I am not gonna speculate Pennywise anymore because I just think it's a license that we'll probably never get. So I hate to say it, but we might never get Pennywise. But the future of Dead by Daylight is interesting, to say the very least. I'm not gonna say it's bright because although it's great to have supporters support the game, canned behavior actually listen to the community and fix the game instead of putting in bandages. This is my little rant about Dead by Daylight and what they could do, what they need to do in order to still survive. Because remember, Dead by Daylight was only supposed to last a few years. It's only the confidence of the development team, as well as requiring these licenses, these killer powers, these perks, and of course their cosmetics, to be able to still stay afloat. Nothing lasts forever, but let's see how long Dead by Daylight can last. Until then, happy anniversary Dead by Daylight, and I wish you all the best. Until then, I am out of here.